building a better Bay Area for a safe and secure future. This is ABC 7 News.
I'm hesitant to go back to school.
I would love to be back in the classroom, but I know that it's not safe.
The classroom is going to be in your home, and I'm going to be your teacher.
I really hope this year brings a lot of learning.
Then we can actually have some deeper learning than we had in the spring.
No schools can reopen for in-person learning until we amend the stay-at-home order to allow that.
We're definitely much more prepared than we were in March.
Better prepared, but what's ahead for elementary school students, teachers, and parents? ABC 7 is committed to building a better Bay Area. Now, this week, we are focusing on education and what back to school will look like for parents and students this fall. Good afternoon, I'm Leanne Melendez. Now, we're going to spend the next half hour talking with experts about making distance learning work at elementary schools. Zooming in today, we have Eduardo Caballero, co-founder of Camp Edmo, Inikia Ford-Morthel, San Francisco Schools Deputy Superintendent of Instruction, Sal Khan, founder Khan Academy, and Jordan Sun, San Jose Chief Innovation Officer. Now, welcome to all of you. Inikia, I have to start with you because the state last night threw a monkey wrench saying that it would grant waivers to some schools to be able to reopen in person. Is that something that the San Francisco Unified School District is considering at the moment?
Yeah, so we appreciate the information and the option from the state, and we're definitely taking that into consideration as we plan for our hybrid phase of our distance learning model. But at this time, all of our schools will be starting back on August 17th in a distance learning format.
Now, is it something that you have consulted with parents already? Because I'm sure that there are not many, but a few parents that would like to go into that hybrid mode that you mentioned as soon as possible. Are you talking to teachers? Have you consulted with parents?
So as we've been planning out what the hybrid model looks like, which will definitely include some in-person, we're definitely taking feedback from and incorporating and co-creating with both educators and family members. However, what we heard loud and clear in our town halls and our surveys with families and educators and students alike was that safe and healthy was health was paramount, safety and health. So we want to make sure we hold that. And with that lens, we're saying that we're going to start off remotely for all students and then move into the gradual hybrid model when our situations and circumstances say that it's safe and healthy to do so.
And for those of you at home who may be a little bit confused, let me explain that this would mean that instruction would be provided to very small groups and only TK, which is transitional kindergarten to 6th grade. So it's a specific group of kids. The school has to provide or prove that they could keep distance within students. And also it has to prove that it has the necessary PPE to even be considered. Now, Jordan Sun with the city of San Jose, are schools there in the Bay, in the South Bay, even considering asking for a waiver?
Well, so, at this point in time, we are also planning for a blended learning option. And part of that is, we've come up with the ability to support educators in implementing a blended and distance learning form. In addition, the digital divide is something that we've been very strong on pushing, particularly Mayor Liccardo, particularly since, even in 2017, he's mentioned this homework gap that exists that really undermines our students to have equitable access to education because of, the inability to access tech and reliable internet.
So do you know, Jordan, if this is coming mainly from parochial schools, from private schools, the waiver petition?
Well, I can't speak of for some of the private schools, but I would say that, this is something that we have to work through as a community, and I know our Santa Clara County of Education has been hard at work to try to address some of these issues.
Now, Inikia, I have to go back to you, and I promise I will return to the other panelists, but distance learning in San Francisco, as you mentioned, begins on August 17th. Can you tell me what that first day will look like?
Yes, the first day is going to be a lot like what the first day is, even in traditional schooling, right? But through a remote or virtual format, which means that our educators are going to really focus on connection and building community and getting to know the students. Not just that first day, but the first several weeks are going to be about welcoming the students, setting expectations for how they're going to engage and be successful in distance learning, getting to know who they are as people, as learners, and really kind of prioritizing that wellness and that connection piece that we heard loud and clear as a theme and something that people want more of as we move into distance learning in the fall.
So will teachers also be able to talk to parents? How involved will the parents be during those first few days?
Yes, that's the piece I was going to add, that a huge piece of that connection is not just a connection between student and teacher, but also that connection between the caregiver, guardian, and parent with the teacher as well. Really making sure that when we talk about getting to know the student, that is not just from the purview of the student, but also the parent, and thinking about how do we partner and communicate and connect better throughout this process in the fall.
And let's go to Sal. You know, who doesn't recognize your voice, by the way? You know, thank you so many times for teaching me algebra so that I can teach my kids. You know, in a way, you've been preparing for this for years and years. What are you offering this time around to students to bolster, to support their learning in the fall?
Yeah, I mean, you're alluding to, none of us could have predicted this scenario, but as when we started seeing that school closures were a possibility last spring, it was one of those moments where we kind of like, you know, looked left, looked right and said, I guess this is us, that, you know, a lot of people are going to need things that are very accessible, that have teacher tools, but also very easy to use for parents and for students. It would have to be free or as close to free as possible. We're not for profit, we're free. It would have to cover across multiple subjects and grades. And so, yeah, we saw that first week, you know, our traffic was about 300% of normal. Our parent registrations were 20 times normal, teacher registrations 10x. And what we've been working on as it became clearer last spring that this was going to be a protracted distance learning scenario is putting out webinars for parents and teachers on how to support this type of distance learning, schedules, learning plans to what type of goals are reasonable so that you can stay at grade level or catch up if you need to. This past summer, we actually just launched some new courses in preparation for back to school called Get Ready for Grade Level courses. Every summer, kids have a learning loss. This summer, or whatever you want to call it, this half year, it's going to be that much worse because of COVID. And so the Get Ready for Grade Level courses are our way. And everything I'm talking about, it's all free, it's all non-commercial, it's all not-for-profit. We're philanthropically funded. This is ways for parents, teachers, to get on Khan Academy. Some of this will be done formally by teachers in classrooms, but all of this is accessible by families directly so that students can fill in any gaps that they might have. So say the Get Ready for 6th grade course. It'll start them at earlier things. Anything they know they can accelerate through. The things that they have gaps in, they'll have a chance to fill those in. And if they're doing it in conjunction with the classroom, the teacher's going to be able to monitor that and get a sense of where their students are. The kids that are ready for the, say, 6th grade or 5th grade, whatever, they can keep going. But then the kids that need some of that gap filling, then at least the teacher knows that. And above and beyond that, we're trying to work with as many districts, systems as possible to give a little clarity, because I think there's a lot of confusion right now about what is at least a minimum viable distance learning. And I think some of what was just talked about is absolutely essential. Khan Academy, and I'm a bit of a poster child for online learning, but I'll be the first person to say that the most important element right now is the connection between teacher and student, and the connection between student and their peers. In a lot of curricula, they don't explicitly.
Let's pause right there, because I want to talk to you a little bit more about that, and then I want to talk to Eduardo as well. And we want you to join in the conversation. Go to Facebook or YouTube to weigh in and interact, of course, in today's virtual town hall. We're taking a break on air, but the conversation continues on our live streams right now. Okay, so one of the things that I'm concerned about, guys, are parents. If both parents are working, or even one, and they won't be there to support the learning, and this is to anyone who wants to address this, do you have any tips for parents?
If they aren't there to support the learning?
If they're not there to support their learning, what tips do you have for parents? Do you want to address that, Eduardo?
Well, I guess it depends on the age of the child. I mean, if you have an older child and they're self-motivated and they can stay engaged with online learning, great. If you have a younger child, that's going to be harder. If you have to go to work, you may want to look at some of those community resources that might be available. I know like San Francisco Unified is going to have the community hub programs, so you may want to look at that. Doing some kind of working with another family. Most of all of our online programs it's all live instruction with our staff and the kids. And we find that with the pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, it's always helpful to have an adult around the house. As you get into the older ages, they can do it more of the learning on their own.
Nikia,
I guess it's really going to be up to the parent.
Okay, Nikia, do you want to address that?
I was going to add to what Eduardo was saying. I think regardless of who's supervising the babies, be they older students or younger students, the idea of routine is really important, and making sure that the child knows what the routine is for how and when they engage in school. And then and where is my space to do so, right? I think one of the learnings that we all had as educators and parents during the distance learning is that it threw us out of our routine. And we spent half of the spring trying to figure out how to navigate this norm. So routines are going to be important, and making sure that the students know what those routines are and where their spaces in the home to engage, I think, is important as well.
Right. Okay, we're going to pause there and wait until we get back in the air. Good conversation with our panelists. I'm going to start with Eduardo.
I hope that this school year will be just like the one before and the one before that.
I hope school is going to go back to normal and that I can have fun with my friends and family again.
I hope it will still have its fun parts, but it will still be like when we were actually at school.
My school is going to be doing distance learning, and I am sad that I cannot see my friends and do all the fun art projects and being in the classroom.
All right, true concerns from the little ones. Now, as promised, I want to go to you, Eduardo, from Camp Edmo. For those of you who may or may not know, Camp Edmo is a science, engineering, coding summer program. My kids did it 1 year. Eduardo, you had the chance or the chance to change the entire operation online. Not easy, but you did it. So we all have faith. It can be done.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, what we're sharing our failures and our successes over the last 4 months of doing online learning with teachers as they're getting ready for the fall. We just started a whole series of professional development workshops for teachers to how to keep kids engaged in online learning. And a lot of what we did to our curriculum is what they're looking to do for their curriculum. You have to make it interactive, break things up into small pieces. Make sure you have other ways of communicating with kids when everyone's on mute. You might have even noticed I was kind of doing this when Saul was saying something that's a me too in sign language. You can clap. There's all kinds of ways you can make online learning engaging, and we're training teachers on how to do that strategy as well.
I'm curious, how long did it take you?
Well, it took us actually. I mean, what's amazing is our team is incredible. They flipped this in a week. We were able to put out a pilot, and we gave it out free to our families. And we said, hey, just give us feedback. The cavalry's coming, but we don't know how to ride a horse yet. So just help us learn. We're here to help you. Help us learn how to do this well. They gave us a ton of feedback. In the first week, we had 500 families enroll with a 1,500 person wait list. It was crazy because parents really needed this service. And what we were able to do is then kind of iterate and perfect and try things and, fail and pick ourselves up and figure it out. But yeah, it was a collaborative process with our staff and our families. And now we're, serving, thousands of families all over the United States.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that so many times. We will figure it out. Now, Sal, for example, if I am a parent and I feel like my child didn't get enough instruction in the spring, fell behind, for example, on your platform, what do you have to offer so that he or she can catch up? What can I do as a parent right now to have him prepared for the fall? We only have about 2 weeks.
So math is where we have the most for students. You know, we started early learning with Khan Academy Kids. That's a tablet or phone app. Once again, everything I'm saying is free, not commercial. That's reading, writing, and mathematics. And then as you get into elementary, middle, high school, and even early college, we essentially have the entire progression in math. So in any math subject, if you have a child, say, entering 7th grade, what I recommend is people can go right now, right after this conversation, go to Khan Academy, look for the Get Ready for 7th Grade course on Khan Academy in math. I would encourage, take half an hour for your child to take the course challenge there. If your child gets an 80, 90% on it, that means that they're ready for 7th grade, and then they can start learning at their own time and pace on the 7th grade course. If they're getting a 50 or 60% on that course challenge, I recommend spend the next couple of weeks as we go into back to school working on that Get Ready for 7th grade. If they're able to do that, it's going to be able to fill in all the gaps they need getting into 7th grade math so that they get into the school year having a really strong foundation. And I encourage, don't stop there. For all kids, whether they have gaps or not, if they're able to put in 20, 30 minutes a day based on their age in math especially, but it also applies to other subjects, they're going to be able to be just fine in terms of keeping up with class, or even in some cases getting ahead of class.
And this is also helpful for parents because they could do the same thing to be prepared for when the fall starts to support their children. I want to also ask Anikia, even if we have the will, right, do we have the necessary equipment? And that's a conversation that has come up time and again since March when the lockdown occurred. San Francisco Unified was very good, and other school districts, they distributed a lot of Chromebooks, very important. But what are we going to do with the K through 2 children? Will they get tablets? Will they get anything?
Yes, so you're right. We distributed 13,000 or so tablets last year in the spring to our 3rd through 12th grade students, and we're going to continue to do that as we start the fall. And yes, we heard a lot of feedback about our younger students in PK2, and so we're also working to deploy devices to them as well over the first several months of school.
Okay, and if we have just a quick question for Jordan, what is San Jose Unified doing to provide, or San Jose period, to provide enough hotspots? And we're going to talk a little bit more about this for all children.
So if you've seen recently, we announced Mayor Sam Liccardo has announced a public-private partnership where we have 11,000 mobile Wi-Fi hotspots in partnership with AT&T for our students. And so the key thing about this is really to be able to start getting these hotspots, and our library has worked tirelessly in partnership with our school districts to make sure that this happens, identify the students who need it, and then subsequently deploy that technology into the hands of the students, as well as provide the necessary education in a variety of languages that both the household can use, but also the student themselves. I think the other key part is really, going to the devices aspect, is the device gap that still exists. And this is something that's really important that I'm sure a lot of other cities, have concerns over. And San Jose is also similar with, in sharing this pain. So, it really stresses the importance of public-private partnerships where companies and donors can come together and really be able to, to push us across this digital divide.
Okay. Well, we're going to pause for a second. We want you to join in the conversation. Go to Facebook or YouTube to weigh in and interact in today's virtual town hall. We're taking a break on air, of course, but the conversation continues on our live streams, and we'll be right back. And Jordan, I wanted to ask you how for those families of underserved communities who may not speak the language and so forth, how else are we supporting them? How can we support them?
Yeah, well, so first of all, we have a hotline that is available. And so thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. The number, would you like me to read you the number?
Please.
It's 408-716-3811. And so this is in partnership with our community-based organizations to be able to take an approach at providing a device for free, coupled with education on low-cost internet plans, as well as digital literacy training.
Okay, and something, Sal, that's very important, and I know you've mentioned this before, your services are free to everyone. And you've mentioned this at the beginning, and I want to ask you again. You must be in high frequency demand right now.
Yeah, we're seeing our traffic. I mean, in the spring, we saw 3x of normal. I suspect as we go into this back to school, it could be 4 or 5x of 500% of what we normally see. In a normal school day, we were seeing about 30 million learning minutes a day. In the spring, we hit about 90 million learning minutes a day. I think we're going to cross 150 million this coming September.
Right, and I'm sorry, I should know this. Do you offer it in other languages or? Yeah,
so Khan Academy is available in 46 languages around the world to various degrees. Obviously, English is where we're most built out, but es.khanacademy.org, the Spanish version of Khan Academy is very close to English in terms of what it offers. And then we have Brazilian Portuguese, we have Hindi, I could go down the list. We have many other languages.
That's right. And we're going to talk in a minute with Eduardo about Sonoma County, which was, by the way, so impressed with what you did at Camp Edmo that they actually hired you, correct me if I'm wrong, to pass on that information to teachers. We're going to talk about that in just a second when we go back on air. So keep that thought.
I kind of like distance learning because I get to work with friends that I don't normally get to work with.
I kind of liked online learning, but I would rather be at school.
And to do all my work at home is going to be hard.
Distance learning is kind of boring because all you do is sit there all day and do like math.
We can't really see our friends that much and our teachers.
And I have to confess, you know, I have 3 kids and they weren't thrilled about doing online learning right away. They really missed that connection with friends and that being in that academic setting. But Eduardo, I want to ask you again, correct me if I'm wrong, Sonoma County was so impressed with your online transformation, your instruction, that they actually hired you to teach some of the teachers there. Is that true?
Yes, a couple of the folks at the Sonoma County Office of Education, their kids have been to our camps for the last few years in Santa Rosa. And so they saw us. We were very public with our transformation and communicating to families what we were going through and what we were trying. And so they were kind of tracking what we were doing and seeing how we had evolved our curriculum and realizing like the process we were going through is what they themselves in the schools and the teachers are going to need to go through. And so, you know, at this point, we have about a school year calendar head start on teachers, right? We have about 4 or 5 months by the time school starts of doing online learning and practicing keeping kids engaged. And that's one of the hardest things when you're doing online learning is keeping kids engaged. Because in schools have never had to worry about kids checking out, right? It's obligatory. You just had to be there in school. And now a kid could just get up and walk away from the computer or just, you know, turn off their camera. And you know, there's so many other things that you need to, you know, keep in mind and make it really engaging for them to stay there and want to be there. So that's kind of what we're designing, actually a whole series of workshops now, the positive feedback we've gotten.
How long did it take for the teachers to really get it?
Well, we've done our first series last week, and this week, on Thursday, we're doing another round for their teachers. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I mean, it's just been a couple workshops. And like I said, we're going to be adding more so we can open up to teachers all over the state and really the country, anyone who wants to learn how to do it.
Anika, how is the district supporting teachers right now? Because that's so important. They were really concerned. Have they been trained already at San Francisco Unified?
So a lot of training happened in the spring, and we are picking up the fall, actually before school even begins, with a lot more trainings, webinars, professional learning communities where teachers come together and share best practices. We too, like Eduardo mentioned, learned a lot around how do you engage students virtually. And so really wanting to help the educators not just be nimble with the various platforms and tools, but also build their pedagogy or what they do and how do they go about engaging and delivering instruction in this new format has been a big piece of the PD that we're doing going into the fall.
Right, supporting those teachers, crucial at the moment. Now we're going to take a break on air again, but the conversation continues on our live streams and We'll be right back, promise. Okay, so one of the things that I want, if parents are listening to us, of course they are, if any of you can explain the difference, and you'll be hearing this a lot, parents, I assure you, the difference between asynchronous versus synchronous learning. Is one better than the other?
I'm happy to take a
Please
stab
do.
at it. I think you need both right now. Asynchronous is the students doing things at their own time and pace, at their own, while synchronous is everyone is together. As I mentioned earlier, it's all about being part of a community. A lot of that happens implicitly in a normal school setting. It's not normally part of the standards, but we all know our best friendships, our best memory, this happens in that school setting. And so I think it's very important to have those synchronous setting, and if we're distance learning, that's going to happen over video conference, where teachers are explicitly trying to form connections between students, between themselves and students, and between the students and each other, because they have no other time between classes in the hallways to have those friendships and have those conversations. So there has to be a lot of that as part of distance learning. And then kind of the outlet, if you're not able to, because you're focusing more of your synchronous time on pulling kids out of the screen and getting them to interact with each other and with the teacher, a lot of that content coverage can happen asynchronously on a Khan Academy-like platform, and the teacher can monitor how kids are progressing. And if kids are stuck on certain concepts, that's where the synchronous setting is really good to kind of dive deeper and make sure that kids are motivated, have goals, and can get unstuck.
Let me ask Anikia, isn't that something that parents wanted more of, synchronous, meaning live with the teachers?
Yeah. Definitely the feedback from the spring was that they wanted more. And in the fall, students and families will get more live interaction. As we've been developing our educators and thinking more and reflecting on our learning from the spring, what we also know, I think a lot of what Sal kind of referenced is that we also have to be strategic around when is the best time to use or engage students in the synchronous or live instruction, and then what time do we want to do for the asynchronous learning. But there'll be definitely more live going into the fall.
Great. Okay, we're going to pause here and we'll be right back in just a moment. And we want to thank our panel of experts for taking time out of their busy schedules today to talk with us and with you about education and distance learning at elementary schools. You can learn more about the back-to-school developments on abc7news.com and on the ABC7 News app. All week long, we'll be talking to experts in education, leaders in child development, families, and of course, our dear teachers. Each day, don't miss a Bay Area conversation about different education-related topics. For example, yesterday, if you remember, we focused on preschools. Tomorrow, we'll discuss middle and high schools. Thursday, colleges, and Friday, of course, teachers. All of that important back-to-school information you will see available on abc7news.com and our connected TV apps. And I leave you with a final thought. Stay calm and educate. Now, ABC 7 News at 5 is next.